Hey guys, it's Cherissa. Welcome to or back to my channel. Now, this is an interesting video. So if you didn't know, I went to Rome and I studied abroad, if you couldn't tell by all of my summer content. I was in Rome studying abroad, having the time of my life. But I studied abroad during a pandemic, and I had a study abroad experience that no one else is ever gonna have. So I'm super excited to share my experience with you guys, and if some of you guys are planning on going abroad in the fall or even the spring, I hope these tips help you because it was different. It was a different experience being abroad during a pandemic, and I will get into that in a second. We're going to talk about COVID, preparation, flights to housing, like being in Italy with COVID, about the program I did. So without further ado, let's get right into today's video. The first thing we are going to talk about is COVID. So I was on a COVID tested flight, which means I didn't have to quarantine when I arrived in Rome. All I had to do to get on this COVID tested flight is take 3 COVID tests. One COVID test was done 72 hours prior to my departure. Another COVID test was given to me in the Atlanta airport by Delta Airlines. And the third COVID test that I had is when I landed in Rome. So since I was on the COVID tested flight, there was no option for us to leave the area. You had to get off the plane and go to the testing area for COVID. So another thing with COVID is everyone had a single room, and I believe most people did have their own bathrooms, or they shared with one other or 2 other people. So my program, I go to Tulane, so typically they stay in hotels, but with COVID they put everyone in apartments with single rooms. We also had a cleaning service that came in about 3 times a week, and all she would do is kind of disinfect everything, take the garbage out. I think she really just disinfected everything. You know, her job wasn't to do our dishes or make our beds. It was really to just disinfect the kitchen, disinfect our bathrooms and stuff like that. I went through Tulane, which I'll get into later. We used the CIEE study center in Rome, and there was social distancing all over the study center, and masks were required. In Italy, you had to wear a surgical or N95 mask. Cloth masks were not allowed. I believe you actually could get fined if you wore a cloth mask. So what I did is I just brought a lot of surgical masks, and I did have a couple N95s as well. Hand sanitizer was everywhere. It was at the entrance of every store, and you had to sanitize your hands in order to go in the store. You could not just walk in without sanitizing your hands. So next we're going to talk about my preparation a little bit. So basically I went through my university, Tulane University in New Orleans, Louisiana. So I applied to their study abroad summer program, and I originally applied to the France program 2 years ago, and it was canceled due to COVID. And then this year I just let my deposit roll over, and it was canceled again this year. And then Italy was open, which I was like, okay, I don't understand why I can't go to Paris, but I can go to Rome. I thought Rome and Italy was hit hard by the pandemic, but anyway, the Italy program was open and I really wanted to go abroad. So I applied, I got in, and there were a few pre-departure orientations, you know, talking about safety, the way of life, culture in Italy, which was pretty helpful, but I do wish there was a little more detail. As I said earlier, I had to get 3 COVID tests before I really entered Rome, so that was a part of the preparation as well. And I also had my COVID vaccine, so I did have a little copy of my vaccine card, and it was laminated so I could carry that around with me. There was a lot of papers that I had to sign regarding my COVID vaccine, my COVID test, why I was entering Italy, and stuff about me being a student there. That's really all for preparation. So let's move on to flights. I was on a COVID tested flight, which meant I didn't have to quarantine. And the plane from Atlanta to Rome, it was a direct flight, thank goodness, was empty. Everyone had their own row. It was very nice. And I don't think social distancing on the flight was intentional, but it just ended up that way, which made me feel extra safe. I think everyone else felt extra safe as well. And also we didn't have to sit next to people for 10 hours in the sky. So I flew Delta Airlines because Delta Airlines had the COVID tested flights where you didn't have to quarantine. So Delta did give me a COVID test. It was a rapid COVID test before you board the plane, it was like a 15-minute like wait. You go in, they swab you, and then you wait for 15 minutes. But that was like in the boarding area. So Delta did that. They were very organized. You couldn't even enter like the gate area to start boarding until you got your COVID test. And we were actually late boarding because there were some people who were still waiting for the COVID test. I love Delta Airlines. They really did amazing with the COVID tested flights, making sure everyone had the right documents to get into Italy and the right COVID stuff, like everything. They were amazing. So let's talk about housing. We stayed in apartments. I was in a 3-person apartment with a kitchen, and linens, towels were provided. My apartment was across the Tiber River. It was not near the study center at all. It was a good like 40-minute walk to the study center, which originally in our orientation they said our walks from our apartments would not be more than 30 minutes, but ours was 40 minutes. That was pushing it a little bit. But my apartment was right across from the Vatican, which the Vatican is actually like a country in itself, and they do have their own like military and stuff. Yeah, I had some experiences. Like, I don't think I was actually supposed to like cut through the Vatican. Like, I think I was supposed to go around the big wall. Now, Italy with COVID, I think at the beginning of the pandemic we saw that Italy got hit hard. But when I was over there, Italy took the pandemic seriously. They were serious about COVID. Everyone wore the mask, everyone was doing sanitizing, everyone was social distancing, everyone was doing their part to make sure other people were safe. You could be fined for mask violations or even curfew violations. Curfew was like 11 p.m. to 6 p.m. when we arrived, and I believe it was lifted halfway through. Everyone had masks. You just like wouldn't see people without a mask. Everyone had a mask. And that's something in the United States like we don't do. Everyone had masks. Italy was not playing with COVID. Let's talk about the program. The program I did is Tulane Study Abroad. CIEE was our host. We used their study center. They accommodated us on excursions and even gave us some tours. There was a student life coordinator. Her name's Rosie. She's absolutely amazing. I have a lot of dietary restrictions, like food allergies, like also a lot of health issues, and they were just amazing, like accommodating me, giving me restaurant recommendations that I could eat at, making sure I had food on our excursions. They're just amazing. Anyway, CIEE also had a beautiful study center, which is in a few videos ago. It's beautiful. It was just a bit far from the apartment. You know, we Americans don't really walk, and 40 minutes like doesn't seem like a lot. But doing that like every day, it gets tiring. The majors in our program was psychology, art history, and education. I am an education minor, so I took the education classes, which was a museum education class, which was art history, but it also counted for my education minor, and this was a really cool class. So I'm really glad that I did end up enrolling in it. But basically, in the museum education class, we went around Rome, explored museums, and learned how we can educate the public in a museum. Kind of like a hands-on learning experience. You know, you can teach at a museum through tours, like museums coming to the classrooms, or even like just programs. So it was nice. I'm a big museum nerd, so I had fun in this class, but there were a lot of museums that were art museums. Don't get me wrong, I love art, but everything was just so white over there, and it's also a Catholic city, and like I'm not very religious, so there's just a lot of pieces that like I wasn't, you know, vibing with, but it was still an amazing experience. I really enjoyed all of the museums. I mean like there's some I didn't like, but like didn't ruin my experience. And then the next class I took was my children's literature class, which was an education class. So we learned about children's books, and we kind of compared children's books in Italy and the States. I don't know if you guys have heard of Montessori education, that was like started in Rome. And then our assignment for the class was to read 20 children's books, so that was fun. So we also had weekly excursions as a group. We went to Pompeii, Florence, and Tivoli. We took a bus or train around Italy, and someone from CIEE came with us every time. They were extremely helpful. We didn't know Italian. I don't really know that many words in Italian now either, but that's kind of embarrassing. Meals were sometimes included, sometimes they weren't. Like in Florence they were included, but in like Pompeii they weren't, and same with Tivoli. they weren't either. Our museum tickets were also included. I don't think we actually had to pay for a museum. I think all of them were included with the tuition. A thing to note is, like, with COVID, we didn't have the same experience in a normal year would have. Many like shops, restaurants, and museums were actually closed, so we couldn't visit them. This is because the tourists bring in so much money, and tourists at the time were not allowed back into Italy. So with the language, we weren't required to know Italian. Like, since our program was Tulane run, our classes were taught in English, and like the CIEE staff members had very good English. I knew like most of my words that like of food that I could not eat because that was very important. Let's talk about the Italy experience, because this experience is like, no one's ever gonna get this. Like, Italy was empty. Have you ever seen like an empty Colosseum? Empty. Like, we are so lucky. Now Italy is open to US travelers. I think we had student visas, so we were able to go in like May. I'm still kind of shocked. Like, I went to Italy and I went in a pandemic and I experienced Italy in a way that no one is ever going to experience Italy again. Like, I'm still in shock. Like, it was like a dream. I really enjoyed the Italian way of life. Everything was just so laid back. Like, they had 5-course meals, which it sounds like a lot of food, but it actually wasn't. It was just spread out over a long period of time, which made going to dinner or lunch with a group a very long experience, because they would do like appetizers, like a mini entree, then another mini entree, then something else, and then like dessert. I really enjoyed the way of life. Everyone just like was taking it slow, minding their own business. You know, walking around the streets, I don't really think I really saw people like on their phones. Just like walking outside, like down the street somewhere, people like we're glued to our phones like this. But I don't remember seeing many people like glued to their phone over there. Granted, I might have not seen any teenagers, but I did love the Italian way of life. The museums were empty, the attractions were empty. We essentially had the Colosseum to ourselves, and no one was in our Colosseum photos. There were times where I was like the only one in a museum. Like, it was amazing. You were just able to like take your time, enjoy, and like live in the moment. Most things were open. You know, when we first got there were a lot of attractions that were closed. Like, for example, the Pantheon was actually closed when we first arrived, but it opened up probably in the middle of our stay. And that was the same with some other attractions. Some museums we were supposed to go to didn't open ever, so like obviously we just didn't go. But most things were open. You know, small restaurants and boutiques were closed, mainly due to staffing issues or loss of business. Like, Italy is a big tourist destination. You know, a lot of these places live off of tourists, and the tourists were not there, so they were not open. So I am dairy free. I've been dairy free for a long time. So this was something I was a little nervous about going into Italy, because obviously I think of like pizza and like pasta and like gelato, which like I typically can't eat unless it is dairy free. But there were a lot of restaurants in the Rome area. Like, granted, it is a tourist area, but there were a lot of restaurants in the area with allergy-friendly menus, like for vegans, gluten-free, like dairy-free. They were able to accommodate. I enjoyed gelato. There was a gelato shop basically downstairs from my apartment, and they had like 5 dairy-free flavors, and I loved the dark chocolate. So that was just so yummy, and it was so convenient. I could just go downstairs and grab it. The grocery stores, they were small. They were small, and their products were also small too. Like, you know, we're kind of spoiled in the States. Like, we can go to Costco and get like a month worth of like food and like supplies. Like, you couldn't do that. Like, I went to the grocery store probably every day, and sometimes even multiple times a day, because some of the stores wouldn't have everything I needed. Like, since these stores were so small, some of them didn't have all the stuff. But like, they also had like stores that were like bakeries, pharmacies, like delis, and like office supplies. Like, they did have like designated stores, which like we definitely are lucky in the States. Like, when you can go to Walmart and you can get like prescription, you can get your food, like you can get clothes, like you can get everything in one place. Like, you couldn't do that there. So some of my favorites in Italy, my favorite thing was the Spanish Steps, which is so pretty. It was kind of like my first experience in my own in Italy. Like, I went to the Spanish Steps by myself. I wandered over there. I just had an amazing time and it was just beautiful. I also love Trevi Fountain. I did go there a couple of times. It's beautiful. Love the Colosseum. I will say, I don't know why I thought it was going to be marble and like all white. I think I just watched too much like TV, but it was not. I also thought that Trevi Fountain was up on like stairs, like you had to like climb up to get there. Like, you didn't. Like, I think I watched like the Lizzie McGuire like movie like maybe a week or two before I went to Italy. My favorite museum was the Museo di Roma. Basically, this museum, it was an art museum, but it had everything from Rome. Paintings on the Trevi Fountain, the Colosseum, the Tiber River, basically things that you've seen around Rome. Now, I don't think I would have enjoyed the museum if I went the first week without wandering around Rome and seeing all these monuments, but going toward the end of my program and after experiencing like the Colosseum and the Spanish Steps, I enjoyed seeing it in pictures. So shopping? There was a lot of shopping. There was a lot of shopping to do. They had some stores like Zara and H&M, which seemed to be cheaper over there than in the States, and I think that's just due to like the importation costs and stuff like that. And also like some name brands were cheaper over there, like Gucci and Prada. Let's chat about the food. Since I have a lot of dietary restrictions, I really wasn't able to enjoy the Italian food. I had vegan pizza, which is like avocado bread with olive oil and like oregano. And I also had like some non-dairy chocolate gelato. It was so good. But I did eat a lot of fried rice. But I said fried rice and like roasted potatoes. Like roasted potatoes with like olive oil and like salt and pepper. Super yummy. My souvenirs, I got a lot of bags. I bought like 7 bags when I was over there, and I got postcards, lots of postcards. I got a postcard from everywhere I went, and I also got lots of magnets. I love magnets too. I got my snow globe because I collect snow globe. So there were some cultural differences. For example, the one that got me was water at restaurants is not free. It is about €4. Here in America, water is free at restaurants, but not in Italy. Another thing, bread, like the bread baskets that they put on tables, also not free, about €3 as well. Wine was actually cheaper than soda and water. And pizza, they don't eat pizza with their hands, they eat it with a fork and knife. But I was also surprised to see that much pizza in Italy. Like, I know pizza's like Italian, but I thought that was like kind of like Americanized. Like, you know, if you go to China, you're not going to see like orange chicken over there, because like orange chicken is American Chinese food. Also, there is security at every museum. They were strict on bags and on water bottles. Like, my camera bag was too big. Sometimes they wouldn't let me take my water bottle in, which was a whole nother story. Police force, they were scary. They were in this full-blown, whatchamacallem? They looked like the military. They had these machine guns with, like, I don't know what the bullet things are, but they scared me. They would just be walking around like it was no big deal that they had these big machine guns. So they have, like, a metro, a public transportation system. It's the honor system. Basically, if you were found without a validated ticket, you would be charged €50 on the spot, and if you didn't pay on the spot, you would have to pay more later. And they also required coins. They like wouldn't take bills at the machines. And a lot of the taxis, most of them were cash only, which I didn't know. Like, I'm lucky I carried cash that day, but I didn't know like taxis for cash only. Ubers, you can only use Uber Black in Rome. Playing Uber is banned. I don't know why, but Uber Black was super nice. We were riding in luxury cars all over Rome, so that was amazing. And there were a lot of bikes. Lots of bikes and scooters, and they were easy to rent. Now, obviously, I am a black woman. I think I lucked out as being black in Italy. You know, I was surrounded by a group of white people, so, I mean, I don't although I did stand out, I don't think anyone like would have bothered me. And you know, I had a couple of incidents like with race. Like one was with a man. I didn't hear everything he said, but I heard that something about a black queen and a black power, and I was like, oh, okay. And then one experience, I was in a store, I was like looking at clothes because I love to shop, and this lady comes up to me. I guess she like owned the store or worked there, and she asked me like what I was doing, and I'm like, oh, I'm just looking around, see what you have, and she told me that I can look outside, like through the window, and I'm like, so I laughed. I didn't give her my business, but it was a cheap clothing store. I'm like, I literally can buy everything in this clothing store. Like, I can't believe you. And then I like went and like dropped like much more money on a not cheap store. Like, don't judge a book by its cover. At one restaurant, like the server kept ignoring me like multiple times when I was trying to place my order, and like she just would take the people who came in after me. Anyway, so let's reflect on lessons learned. Number 1, take your time and live in the moment. I am really glad that I did this. At most of the museums and on tours, I put my phone in airplane mode, so I could only take like pictures and videos, and no one could call me or text me, or you know, if something was happening on social media, I wouldn't hear about it, which I think helped my experience a lot because I wasn't worried about what people were doing back in the States. Next, plan ahead. We originally weren't allowed to leave Rome, but as the restrictions were lifted, we were able to travel around Italy. And for example, I wanted to go to Milan and Venice, but I didn't plan that until last minute, so I didn't get to go because I couldn't get things sorted out. Next, go with the flow. Just like take your time, like just like the Italians. You know, kind of adopt the Italian way of life by saying like buongiorno or like ciao. And also dress modestly, which kind of goes into my next point, is being respectful. Like, Rome is a very Catholic city, and there are a lot of churches and basilicas as attraction sites, but they're also sacred places. This means like you need to cover your shoulders, be quiet, and like don't try to sneak pictures. And another thing, like their casual is not our casual. Like, we stood out like wearing like short shorts, like short skirts, and like having our shoulders not covered. Next, get lost in the city. This is just like a great way to get to know this city that you're in. Just turn off the GPS and just walk around. Pop into some shops, maybe try a new restaurant or cafe, and just live in the moment and enjoy it. And next, don't plan every minute of every day. Leave free time to shop, to explore, to relax. Finally, know yourself. Italy was a lot of walking. It was uphill and it was in the heat. Walking in the heat and uphill got a lot of us. We were online for a whole year. We weren't doing this kind of walking, and it got the best of us. It was hot, like we were dehydrated. We weren't used to us walking. And even though we go to school in New Orleans, we're not in New Orleans in the summer, which is the worst time to be in New Orleans. Okay, we are kind of wrapping up this video, but here is some of what I would do differently. Like I said, like I'm going to plan ahead. For Paris, I want to have things that I want to do in France already planned out before I arrive there, because like I did everything I wanted to do in Rome, but like I didn't get to go to Milan or Venice because I couldn't plan it in time. So next year I am going to pack lighter. I am going to bring smaller bottles of like shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. I didn't use the whole product, so that just took up space going there and back. Most of the bottles that I did use, I was able to throw away over there, like my shaving cream, like some face wash, some lotion. I was able to throw that stuff away, but like my big bottles of shampoo I didn't throw away because I had so much left. So I think next year I'm going to put those in smaller containers. And I want to budget better. I didn't budget. At first I didn't even know if I was going to Italy until like the last minute. So I didn't budget. Most of my money went to shopping, which isn't a bad idea, but I think I should have just like managed my money a little better. There was not a budget for me when I went over there. I do think I did need to have one. I know I did some excessive spending over there. And then finally is don't overbook your day. Like I would try to put like 4 or 5 museums in on one day, which didn't make sense because since I love museums, I could easily spend a whole day at a museum. I'm just excited to travel more. It's been an amazing experience. I had an amazing summer. Like I'm just so lucky I had the opportunity. So lucky that everything seemed to work out just in time for me to go to Rome. I had an amazing experience. This is definitely a trip of a lifetime. That's kind of it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is actually like my first sit-down video in a very long time, and I do not know when these sit-down videos will be back. I do enjoy doing sit-down videos. I think it's just another opportunity for you to get to know me better, and for me to get to know you guys better, like with your comments and support. But that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you like this video, feel free to give it a huge thumbs up, and don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe down below. Thank you guys so much again for watching this video. I hope you all have an amazing day. Remember to stay safe and wear a mask. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Bye bye!